So how do you make items for Minecraft Frontiers? This video is going to be a quick guide. It's going to take 5 to 10 minutes. And in those 10 minutes, you should understand hopefully how to make your own items, which is pretty exciting. If you played on the server, you would know that every single item we have is actually a custom item. And this means we get to decide a lot of things about the item, like the name, the purpose, and how it looks. And to actually make this happen, this means that every single item has to have a configuration on the server for that item. And the purpose of this video is to actually explain to you how those configurations work and how to put them together. To learn more about this, you would go to the Minecraft Frontiers public drive, and there's going to be a lot of information for you, especially in the item design section. If you go in here, you'll see two important things. You'll see the item design guide. This is going to cover a lot of the things that I cover in the video, but a lot more as well. So I would recommend you actually read through this before you start designing some of the more complex items. The other thing is the item examples, and this is really useful. So when you want to design your own item, the fastest way to do this is to take a file that already exists, change the name of the file and some of the things in the file to actually make it a different item. And this is really quick. So when I was designing all of the MF items for launch, that was something like 300 items, I was just copying and pasting some of the basic items and tweaking it. That's a lot quicker, and it's actually safer because you don't have any mistypes in the file as well. So to download any of these, you can just double click it. It's going to ask you to download. And once you download this, you can open it on your own PC. It's just a text file, so it's really simple to do. And once you open it, you'll hopefully see something like this. So this has a specific structure. So these files work based on specific spacing. You can see it has 3 different sections, and this is shown by the spacing. So the first section is the journal section. And it contains a lot of subsections, and you know this is a subsection by the 2 spaces in front of it. So whenever something has 2 spaces in front, it means it belongs to whatever section is above it. So this journal section is pretty big. Then you have a section that has no subsections, and then you have the meta section that has 2 subsections. And what I'll do with you right now is cover all of these sections, tell you what they mean and why they are important. This file is actually a really good example. So it's the collection of Wolf Thief. And it's a good example because it contains 3 required sections. So every single item in MF would contain the journal section, the remove on reload, and the meta section. And if you have something like a weapon that's a really complex item, it would have a lot more information, but it would always have these 3 sections. So let's go over this. So if you want to spawn the item in the game, the item would have to have an MF name. And this is true for every single item. So every single item would have its MF name. So for this one, it's MF colon collection Wolf Thief. And this has a specific naming convention. If you go to the guide, you'll read a lot more about it. But I'll try to explain it right now. So it always starts with MF colon, and then you have the name of the general category. So if something has multiple names, like a short sword, that would be called weapon short sword. Or if it's a burning short sword, you'll always start with the most general category. So that's a weapon. So it would be called weapon, then short sword, and then burning, because that's the specific category. In this case, the general category is collection and Wolf Thief. So there's going to be a lot of collections, which is why it's a general category, and it's Wolf Thief because that's that specific collection. First word is always lowercase, and any other words behind it would be uppercase. So if this was a fine Wolf Thief collection, what do you think it would be? So the general one is collection, then the more specific one is Wolf Thief. If there's different categories of Wolf Thief, then you could define the specific one. So it would be collection Wolf Thief, and this would be the fine one. So you as you go along, you get more and more specific with the naming. So that's the first line, that's the MF name. Then we have a display name. It's quite different. So this is what the player sees in game. So with this one, we don't use capitalization unless it's a legendary item, and you should not be designing a lot of legendary items. So you will not be using capitalization in this line. You can have as many words as you want, but the longer you make it, the harder it's going to be to display it in Minecraft. So kind of be sensible with the naming. The other thing is type. So type lets you know how it looks like and how it behaves. So generally you want to use types that don't have any special properties. So something like an ender pearl would have a special property that's driven by Minecraft, which makes it not so good for custom items. Oak planks are just oak planks. They don't do any special in Minecraft, so it's a really safe type to use. How do you find these types? So to actually find these types, you go to Google, and you can search for bucket and bucket materials. I'll link this as well, so this is linked in the guide, but if you need to find it, you just search for bucket materials. And this is going to list all the different types you can use in Minecraft on our server. So in this case, we're using oak planks. So actually, let's find maybe birch planks. Yep, there we go, birch planks. So this is a type you could use. You could just copy it, and then you go back into your file, and you can change this to birch planks. And if you change this, it's going to look different in Minecraft. The other section is lore. Lore is quite different because it itself has subsections, and it's quite different because it's a list. So to do a list, you do a minus and a space, and then you write whatever is supposed to be on the line. So this has 2 lines. A lore section can have as many lines as you want, so you can just keep adding them and keep writing whatever you want in your lore section, and this is going to appear on the item in the game. So in this case, it says it's a decorative wooden case, holds various types of wolf teeth. So it's 2 different lines you see. Something to keep in mind is that Minecraft has quite specific resolutions, so you don't want to make it too long, because then it's gonna kind of stretch out of the Minecraft window, which is not good. So what we try to do is keep this as simple as possible, keep them really short. And if you want to say something long, it's better to split it into multiple lines. So this is how you do a long sentence. The other section is ORDICT, and this decides the crafting behaviors. So most of the time, this is just gonna be the name, the MF name of the file. And this tells it if you wanna craft something out of this item, it would be seen as this MF item. So don't think about it too much. When we get into complex crafting, I'll explain more advanced stuff, but just know that ORDICT's always supposed to have the MF name in it. Max stack size, usually you wanna keep this -1. -1 means it's gonna be driven by the default Minecraft behavior of that item type. So planks, I believe, stack up to 64. So if I leave this as -1, it's gonna stack up to 64. If I want to change this, so if I want to make it stack to just maybe 1, I don't want to make it stackable, I just leave it as 1, or stack to 5, or whatever you want. But usually we leave it as -1 to make sure it follows what's gonna be the expected behavior for that item type. So that's the general section. So this is the most important section. Then you have remove on reload. Usually you want to keep this as true. This just tells us that if we reload the server, it's going to update this item. So you always want to keep this true. And the last section I want to teach you about in this video is the meta section. So the meta section is the stuff we use for our internal plugins. So here you see 2 different things. You see the category. So this is what's shown in the portal. So if you go into the game, and you go to the portal section, which shows all the recipes, it would be categorized by this category. So something to keep in mind is that you don't want to have a lot of categories. So if you had hundreds of categories, they stop being meaningful. So you just want to look for categories that already exist and make your new item part of this category. Or if you're making something really new and really, I guess, unique, you would make your own category, but use that sporadically. You don't make too many categories. And the value is quite important. So the value decides what's the value of this item, economical value. So if you take this item and you want to sell it on the trade house, it would have this value. This is -1, so -1 is special. If you set this to -1, it's automatically gonna decide the value of this item based on its recipe. So most of our items are actually decided based on the recipe. So this is a collection of wolf teeth. It's gonna have a lot of ingredients, and if you set this to -1, it's gonna calculate for you what the value of this item should be. If you actually want this to be something different to the ingredients, or if it's an item that doesn't have a recipe, we have, I believe, around 80 items that are primary items, which means they are not crafted. They are obtained by killing stuff or buying it or importing. In that case, you would write the value here. So it could be something like 54, which would give it the value of 54. So if you go sell this item and it's being sold at 100% value, it would give you 54. But if it has a recipe, you leave it as -1. So that's the item behind this item, item file behind this item. If you have any questions, you can ask us in Discord. But if you're finished with this item, you usually want to double check everything's okay, and then you just save it. And the name of the file should always be the same as the second half of the MF name. So in this case, the file is going to be called collection wolf thief, and it would be the YML file. So every single file we have is a YML file, and you would just save this as you could save it as a text file and just rename it to .yml. So if you go back to our example items, you can see they're always called the same as the MF name .yml, and this makes it a file we can use on the server. So what I would recommend you do right now is actually go to the item design guide, read through the whole thing, and at the end there's gonna be like a task. There you go. There's a task, and I would recommend you do this task. And once you complete this task, it asks you to create a new file that's gonna create a mysterious log. Once you're done with that, you can actually send this to us on Discord. On Discord, there's a new section called, I believe, content creation. So you can post that file in there and we review it. And once it's reviewed, we approve you as a content creator for the items. So if that goes through, you can make as many items as you want. If you have any questions, you can ask us. And if you want to make more specific items like weapons and armor, there's going to be other videos that explain that. But hopefully by the end of this video, you now know how to make the general items. And this is part of this guide as well. So you should be able to understand all of these sections now and be able to make your own item. If you did not understand something, you can just read through this guide and it's gonna describe what I just described in this video in more detail. Thanks a lot for listening, and I'm really happy to see what you put together.